Hello and welcome back. As you can see, quite a lot of work has taken place since the last video, and in fact since I shot that video I think nearly 3 weeks has elapsed, and you can see I've got the new baseboards down and I'm just having a play with some of this 80s, early 90s catenary, which we'll have a look at shortly, but first I'll just give you a little bit better view of the baseboard. So it's all in place now, and I think all of my old boxes and things are now sitting underneath the railway quite nicely. A little bit extra storage available here and there. I've got some sets on some shelves just to try and protect the boxes. If you stand too many on top of each other, they just sort of tend to crush themselves. So I'm quite pleased with the board. I say the only thing I've really run is that set we saw in the video you would have seen last week, but I've just been having a quick play earlier today with this Class 86 and these items from the catenary range from the late 80s. I think this reintroduced range of catenary came along in about 1988, and I think it ran for about 10 years. It wasn't quite as pretty, I don't think, as the earlier catenary, but we'll have a look at that. So what I'm planning to do is set up a little bit of this later style catenary on a bit of track, and I haven't got very much of it, so if I haven't got enough of these masts to go all the way around, we'll employ some of the earlier triangle ones. So we'll just have a swift look right around the room. I certainly don't have enough long sections of System 6 steel track either, so I'll just have I think what we've got 3 there, and I think one behind where we were just looking, so we'll have to improvise there. I do have some of the nickel track as well we could use. I just decided to use System 6 because it's sort of native to this style of catenary. You see I've got more storage there, and a nice box full of System 6 steel track there. I do have some, as I said earlier, some nickel track, but we'll get that out and see what we can do with it. So that's the duck under area there, so it seems to work quite effectively. Door into the room opens nicely into there, and it runs right the way around. I'm quite pleased, as I keep saying. I think it's going to be great fun. We'll just have a swift look in the Hornby Railways 1988 catalogue. I think this was edition 34. So it's printed on fairly shiny paper, fairly stiff, so it excuse the glare on there. So it's quite a nice catalogue. There's some very interesting models. These are generally well beyond my collecting range. As I say, I do have a 86, although the model number really does escape me. So we'll just have a quick flick through here. It's a completely different style of photography, isn't it? Very, very stark, I think, some of it. Very upfront. The models are very, very large on the pages. But I think it's quite impressive. A completely different departure from earlier catalogues with much smaller imagery. We'll just have a look at this price list. I hadn't actually realised there was a price list within this. So let's see if we can see the diesel electric, see what a Class 86 was, what sort of price. So they've got one in intercity livery there, which I think mine might be an intercity livery. I haven't identified the actual model number of mine, but this one is R.800 intercity livery, new this year, and it's £26.49. So that's quite a substantial price if you look at the prices of the diesel electric locomotives here. I think the Silver Fox, LNER Silver Fox here, runs at £49, and there's a LMS Princess Elizabeth there at 54. Quite expensive models, aren't they? So I wonder whether there's any catenary on the list. Let's just have a quick look down here. We do have System Control 90, and then track So a loco module there for a 01 look. So that sort of dates it quite well, doesn't it? £9.74. That must have been coming along, I think, towards the end of 01, isn't it? 1988. So definitely fading out a bit by then. So here we have the catenary. We've got R290 single track catenary pack new, and it says £13.24. So interestingly, the box I have has a price of £27.99 on it. We'll have a look at that in a moment. And the catenary point pack, £7.12, and a 15-inch length of catenary wire there, 33 pence. So that was sold in packs of 6. I do have a pack which is supposed to have 6 in, but somebody stuffed a few more pieces in it for good measure. So this price list seems to be dated to 1st January 1988. So we'll just flip through a few more pages of the catalogue until we get to the catenary and the model that I've got on the railway at present. I don't have any coaching stock which is suitable to go with it, but I'm sure we'll find something which will look the part or will do the job, should we say. So again, they're quite interesting model. These are almost sort of backlit in the photography. So I doubt the photographer's idea, I imagine, rather than the client's. Again, it's quite effective though, but I think as a client you'd have had to be quite bold to go for it. They really are big on the pages. Lots of new models coming up in 88 though. And even more new models here. And here we get the electric locomotives and overhead power supply system. And the imagery on here looks quite encouraging to start with, but these masts and then what showed up, I think, are quite a bit different if we have a look at that. These are all plastic across the top and a very, very long arm. When we look at these images here, this is metal and a much shorter arm. Let me lift that up and see what we can see. And also they're painted up or moulded in grey plastic in the image, and look at that. That's a completely different sort of animal, I think. If it turned out looking like this, I think there would have been a much better proposition, but as you'll see, a lot of these take on a terrific bend on the top there. So we'll just pop that down for now. 86 looks quite impressive there, although I really don't like the pantograph on these models. And there we go, there's a great spread of models with pantographs. I think all of those have operating pantographs on them. Lovely looking things. So I must get some coaching stock to go with these, something that looks a little bit more appropriate from the period. As I say, it is just beyond my normal collecting range, and it's probably a bad habit to start expanding it, I think, too much. And there we've got the single track catenary pack and the catenary point pack there, and the 15-inch catenary wire with connector available mid 88. So we just hold that up there, that diagram's quite interesting, isn't it? Shows how you could run models powered from the rails and one powered from the overhead there. So I think we'll pop that down rather than run through the whole catalogue for now, and just have a look at these items. Now I've got quite a number of these, but perhaps not enough to go around the room, and some of them are in this box and they have the clips on, like this, the little white droppers, and we'll have a bunch in this bag which have taken on a sort of yellowish colour, and they're missing their little white droppers, so I think we'll have to pinch some from the older Triangle catenary. And the clips that hold these onto the track, there's sort of a claw type which goes under the rail and across, which I'll show a little bit later on. Actually, no, I'll just grab a piece of track. Hang on a second, I will be right back. here we have 2 pieces of track, rail joiners on the wrong sides. What I've forgotten about when I was using this is you need a ready supply of fresh rail joiners, I think, as the older Hornby ones just need replacing straight off, so I'm just going to have to put in an order for some of those, I think. So these sort of claw type ones, they slot on there and they sort of clip onto that side, and then you can go ahead and either screw or pin them down for extra stability. So the mast just slots into there, so it is quite secure. But would have been nice, I think, if these had been in grey. And the power mast, let's just unclip that for now. Actually, before we get to the power mast, we'll have a look at the other 2 types of clip that we can use. So there's one that you can cut the claw off and use it to mount it near points and so on. And there's also that one, which is quite familiar, can be used with rail markers and things for the uncoupling ramps. Also works for the masts, and it does suggest in the handbook that you can cut these off to get them, the little tabs at the end, cut them off to get them into position. So we'll just have a swift look at the power mast. I'll just unclip that one. So that's a regular mast, and that one becomes a power mast, and it's got this little tab on there where you can slide a little connector on, but it's right up here in the air and you'd have to run the cable down. It's very messy, I think, compared to this neat power mast assembly here. So that's just the power clip runs into the rail. You put your power connectors in the bottom. It's the other side, isn't it? I can't quite see in the camera. Power connectors in here, so one feeds this wire here, which lies on the overhead wire and supplies the feed, and then it returns through the outside rail there. So I think that's much neater than that. Also, I think this really should have been in grey. So as I just mentioned, this pack does have the price of $27.99, so maybe this was resold at a later date when it gained value, but compared to the catalogue picture, we've got the actual items which were within the box here rather than the ones with the metal arms on the top. So I think that's much more realistic. So this isn't a complete box, it has masts in it, but it doesn't have all the little wires and things in there, sadly. So there we've got R.800 single track catenary pack. Lovely great barcode on the back of the packaging there. And there's the list of the items here. So R.800 would have had 1 power mast. Let's just get that out of shadow. With a 24-inch lead. 17 standard masts. 18 claw type mast base, which I've just demonstrated those. 12 15-inch catenary wires and with connectors. 1 power connecting clip. Accessory bag with mast links, clip type mast base, and spare catenary wire connectors. Overhead power supply system manual. That's quite a nice little book, that if you can get hold of one of those. That's quite interesting within there. So those are the individual items there, and there's the point pack there, which has a differing set of contents. You can have a read through that if you'd like to. So we'll just see if we can ease these out here. Sadly, over time, rust seems to have crept into some of these masts. Let's just see if we can pull these out. The packaging is a bit optimistic. As you can see, some of these masts are also yellowed a little with age, so it must be just how the plastic reacts to air and light and so on. So I think that one there must be for a point, because it's for the double wire holder, which again I don't have for this new system, so I'm going to have to pinch some of those from the old system. Let's just pop that down. So maybe this is a mixed bag of things which has just been put back into the box. So it's got all of its little white droppers on. And then we've got plenty more clips and things in there. So we'll just have a look at the pack of wire, and then I'll get on with getting some of this track down, and we'll come back to it when I've got it running. That might be in several days' time. But there is that R415. So you get 6 of these wires in here, but I think again, somebody's dismantled their railway. They've put them all back in here, and some of them have a little bit of a bend on. I've already got some of them out, so it's quite nice to have the bent ones, because you need the bent ones to go around the corners. And there it is, up and running. The new baseboards with a train running all the way around. So there's a couple of long afternoons and a long evening's work here, and these pantographs have a slight fault, I think, in that they clip on the wire joiners on the overhead. They're not as well thought out as they could be. It's probably just so they can make them look a little more realistic, but they tend to catch a little. So we'll have a good example of that as it comes around, but I just can't tell you how pleased I am with this. And it's such a lovely feeling to have it running again. Just watch this as it comes into the curve here. You see the pantograph just catch on that wire joiner there. I thought I'd got all those out, so perhaps just a little more work to do there, I think. There's the offending joining clip there, and it was just a bit rougher than some of the others, and I'd missed it as I was setting it up, or hadn't quite noticed it. Some of the others I've also had to do a little bit of light filing just to smooth it out, and it solves the problem. Also, when we look at these masts, let's see if we can look down this length of them here. I know I'm looking at the older ones here, but we have this wire sprung support here. Sometimes, especially with the older ones, I've noticed that the production quality isn't quite as accurate from mast to mast as it could be, and sometimes these hang too low. And even on the 60s pantographs, they tend to clip the edge of the skate, so you have to alter the angle of those sometimes to ensure smooth running. But I've got most of the faults ironed out in this now. If we run right around, they're the old masts. I didn't have enough to go right the way around the room, unfortunately. But if we have a look here, we've got the two types together. So we've got the late 80s ones, and we've got the 1960s, early 70s one there. So they do a similar job, but the bend that comes in here can be quite significant. If we have a look there, the next one along, it's beginning to droop quite badly. It's very, very weak. So let's just have a look all the way around. And what I did notice, and I was completely unaware of until I started to put these together, is that there seems to have been a modification on these at some point in time. And there's a little plastic sort of infill or fillet being added to them. So if we come around here, see, I've got a little bit of a point or siding set up there, but I don't think I'm going to have time to experiment too much with that on this particular video. So I managed to get quite a number of those masts in, so I think we'll be able to see one of the adjusted masts along here. So there's one, as most of them are, and it's just going to become quite droopy. It doesn't quite have the support it could. If we look at the next one along, it's got like a infill piece of plastic to give it extra support there, so it must have become a problem quite early on. But a handful of these have got the extra support in, and you can feel it even there. It's much, much stronger compared to this one, which is quite bendy. And several of them that I had in the bag here weren't up to the job, so there was a completely broken one. And I think that's always going to be the case at some point. They are going to just go at that point. And this one is just, it doesn't have the strength left in it. It's already suffered in its life, hasn't it? But still, they're great fun to play with for now. So I do definitely prefer the 60s variation. And just back to that Catenary wire clip, there's one there. I don't know whether it'll keep focus if I bring that any closer. So it's a fairly basic thing for joining the wire together, but it can have a quite crude edge, which the earlier pantographs, so you get that stick on the pantograph. So you've got to be careful setting this up to avoid any unnecessary accidents. And here we've got this great set of mid-70s coaches. I chose to run with it today. So we've got Mark II brake and what is it, an open coach there, and we've got a buffet and a Mark 1 with the Mark 2 style bogies, I think you call them on, the same with the sleeper, all got the chromed window frames. So I just chose a catalogue page which would represent these. All of these coaches have the silver seal wheels that are available for a long period of time with a variety of catalogue numbers, and I think the silver or chromed window frames came along sometime in the mid-70s, shall we say. I think it might have been in response to a practice by BR to put chromed window frames to improve their coaching stock. So there we have the BR Mark II Intercity Open Coach, and that's R921. Now I believe these coaches were all made between sort of the early 70s, and that they ran right into the 90s at least, I think. So I can't give you accurate dates, but I believe the ones I've got on the layout today are sort of mid-late 70s. And there is the R922 Mark II Intercity Brake second corridor coach, so I can't quite read them. I'm trying to read this through the camera, and they're all represented with chromed painted window frames. And there is the buffet, and that's R923 Intercity buffet car, and then we have the sleeper at the bottom of the page, R924 BR Intercity sleeper car. So quite an impressive page that, with all of those models there. As I say, they're available over a long period of time, and I believe possibly supplied to the catalogue houses here in the UK without the chromed window frames, just to save the costs. So we're just having a look in this little instruction book which came along with the Catenary pack, and there's a junction link with clip. I pointed out that I had the drop link, but I didn't have the appropriate little steel clip to hold the two pieces of Catenary wire together within it. Seems to be missing from the newer style ones I have, but to all intents and purposes I think it's the same as the one used in the older system which I had on the previous layout. So here is some which is sort of out of the box from the old stuff, and there's one with the clip. I think they were sold with the clip already clipped in. Now my problem with these is they seem to drop out by themselves when they're on the railway, and I developed a method of supporting them with a regular dropper just a little bit further back, and it seemed to do the job perfectly, where I was struggling with the point junction clip where it was failing. But I do have a number of them from the old set, but I just didn't put them in the end when I worked out another way of using them. But this one seems to work fine, and if I show you a close-up of the junction clip or wire clip there, that's how you hold the two pieces of catenary overhead wire together, and it just clips into the clip. I suppose you could put a little blob of super glue on it to stop it dropping out, but I always try and avoid glue where I can. So you would need at least 3 masts to make a point work successfully with the overhead catenary. So if I just take that up there, and it's a bit of trial and error with the bending, but I've just used a piece from the other layout. I haven't rebent anything. I'm just going to swap hands here. We'll just get this model to run through the points there. So if I give it a little bit of power, it's bound to go in the wrong direction, so that's fingers crossed. Yeah, definitely in the wrong direction. So that runs through there quite smoothly if I hold that a little bit closer, we will be able to see it as it rolls back. That was a bit more of a jump into life than I was expecting, so we'll have another go. That was a bit calmer, wasn't it? So let's try again. That's a bit nicer. Now we'll just throw the point. So no electric point work at the moment. I'm not sure I'm going to get any in with this little experiment, so we'll see if we can come through the points there and see how we do. A little bit of power. Again, I'm never going to learn, am I? I wired this up the wrong way round. So nice and smoothly through. Don't want to go too far. I've only got less than half a metre in this siding, so we'll just run that out. And there, that's the lack of upwards pressure on that pantograph again, I think, is just causing it not to run there, not making quite enough contact. I'm sorry, I'm passing the camera from one hand to the other there, so a little bit more power. And once again, we'll have one more go from slightly higher above. And back we go. Not bad for old steel track though, is it? So I've got the 1986 catalogue, and my model seems to have been new this year, and I've tracked down the model number and it seems to be R800, so definitely new this year. We'll have a swift look at the catalogue cover. We won't go into it in too much detail. It's got a handy sticker there to remind the previous owner of what year the catalogue was, and there's the price ticket there and the store name, £1.50. I think this is probably more illustration than photograph, looking at it. But we won't go through the catalogue in detail. We'll just have a look at the model as she stands on the page there. Quite impressive with these intercity style livery trains here, or locomotives, sorry. I must get the terminology correct one day. So it says here, R800, BR Bo Bo Electric Locomotive, Class 86. A generation of 100-mile-an-hour electric locomotives was born in 1959, when electrification work on the West Coast London-Glasgow routes was in progress. The Hornby model will pick up current from the running rails or from the overhead supply through the pantograph on the roof, available early 86. Now I think Hornby's model of the Class 86 probably first came along in 81. I think it was named Phoenix, I think it was in the corporate BR Blue at that time. There were quite a lot of variations of this over the years. I'm not going to go into them. And I think the models sold quite strongly through till 96. But here's the one I have, and we'll just have a quick look over it. You can see that pantograph wobbling around there. And it has that BR double arrow logo there. I think the model was re-released just after this, and it had Intercity written on the side perhaps. and this one's named Royal Anglian Regiment. I can't pronounce that. I was talking to somebody on the telephone the other night and really mispronouncing that word. It's a real tongue twister for me, but it seems to have plenty of detail. It's got all this lovely electric detail across the top of the model here. I'll have a close look at that pantograph. So it isn't, as I say, it doesn't have that strength that the earlier models had, really pushing up against the overhead, so you can find yourself without continuity more often than you might think. So it seems to be part alloy here and a shinier type of metal, and then sort of looks like pressed bent steel. And there's that skate is just quite loosely fitted and slotted in at the end there, so it looks like an item which could go missing and possibly broken. So as I say, I think that could have been designed with a little bit more curvature, with its use in mind on the quite crude Hornby Railways or Triangle Railways, Catenary for that matter. I think there is cab detail in there, but this model is rather dirty. I've never really got round to cleaning it up. It seems to have a nice handrail across the front end of the cab there. Some nice lightning bolts there to warn you of overhead electric. Somebody has painted the wheels up in white, the edges of the wheels. I don't think that was a stock feature, and I'm not sure whether these handrails are just painted up detail or whether they're separately fitted there. You can see that great hole to the side of the bodywork there, and that's how the underframe chassis is held into position. I'm not going to dismantle the model today. I believe there is a tiny part missing from the edge of this box here. I have seen other models of it as a protrusion on the side here. So again, it's fairly tidy condition, and it does have this roof switch here, so you can select to pick up current from the overhead or current from the rails. I believe if you leave it centrally positioned, it doesn't pick up current from anywhere. Great big metal wheels on here. We've got 2 traction tyres. Let's get that into the light a little. And this coupling hook and all the assembly is sort of moulded into the side frame detail there. Again, preventing it from getting it too bent, and also absorbing the impact of when we tend to couple things up a little bit too enthusiastically. We've got the dummy bogie here, and these run really lovely and freely. It makes a really nice noise on the track. That underframe detail really is quite pretty. Let's see if we've got Hornby's name on the bottom here. So let's turn it around a little more. I think what we've got here is made in Great Britain, and then Hornby, rather strangely positioned. It almost reads more like made in Hornby, Great Britain. I don't know whether we can quite get that in focus there. But again, some effort at detail even on the underframe there. But a lot more detail. So the models are really coming along by the time we get into the 1980s. I think that's probably nearly it for today, but we'll just have a look at the remainder of the 88 catalogue. Quite a swift look through it, I think. We won't go too overboard with it. So I think next week I'm going to try and get something done with that siding and see if we can get perhaps some of the older catenary hooked into there, the pressed steel type that came along in the earlier tram railways time. And there's an interesting little adapter to make the two styles of catenary work together. So you can see it's a lovely set of coaches. I think these are really quite smart, but I'm thinking it might be just going too far if I begin to sort of try and get some of these coaches to go along with the liveried locomotive. I'm not quite sure. It may be just another bad habit, too far perhaps. It's already out of hand. So you can see wagons really are acquiring quite a lot of detail in the late 80s. A completely different kettle of fish, lots of paint finish, ultra fine printing and so on. They really are serving a completely different market, I think, by the time we're getting to that stage. The old faithful crane there, that colour on the page, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's yellow, isn't it? So it was produced earlier in red. But, in the light I'm looking at, that almost looked to be red. And the breakdown coaches there. And the track cleaning car. I think we showed one of those, or tried to show one of those a little while ago. And you see these long running switches in the range. You've got the newer style power clip there, and the 01 in the corner of the page. Another lovely studio picture there. Track components. So it really is, it's a complicated range, isn't it? Some of these models have a long history. That suspension bridge goes back to the very early 60s, as well as the river bridge, although it's a quite different coloured plastic for the topping here. And you can't quite see those. This later style of sidewall, I quite like this. I am planning to use some of that in the near future. So we'll keep an eye on that. Signalling and turntables. What a lovely shot there. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing the video. It's turned out to be a little longer than I'd anticipated. Lovely station canopies there. So let's get one of those on the railway at some point. Figures, trees, buildings, and then the Thomas range. Not really my cup of tea at all. I understand the collection value of it, but it doesn't really appeal to me. But there we go. We've got a handful of those items there. And there's that price list again at the back. See the bridge is even cropped up again. They're not the bridge, the tunnel, in a slightly different paint. It's almost reversed colours, isn't it? But thanks again for watching. It really is hugely appreciated. And thanks for all those wonderful comments. It really is a pleasure to read them. But I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Goodbye now.